In Europe, we are, in terms of the size of the complex and in terms of the resident population that comes, roughly 10,000 a week basically in terms of footfall at this Gurdwara. I am not the president, Jitinder Singh. He is preoccupied now. We have a ceremony and it's ending at this Gurdwara approximately 2 o'clock as well. And it's a procession to commemorate the birth of our first Guru, Nanak Dev Ji. So it's our Christmas Day. And we're commemorating on this weekend, but it's actually on Friday coming. So it's the birth of our religion itself. So again, with that, a very warm welcome, and do join in as much of the festivities as you can. My name is Hamraj, I'm the General Secretary here. And I welcome the partnership with Footsteps, and I hope the partnership with ourselves and Footsteps can grow. This is our first attempt at this relationship, and very much like the relationship that we have with the army outside and the statue. We hope that we can do big things basically going forward. Just to let you know, there is no fire alarm planned or test. So if there is a fire alarm, the emergency exits are straight out of here to the left, and there's a side entrance, Trinity Street. And basically the sort of point of sort of gathering is at the far end, at the top end by Holy Trinity Church. Apart from that, toilets as well, ladies and gents toilets are on this floor in the same corner over here. So thank you again, and I wish you all the best.
Okay, good afternoon everybody. For those who don't know, my name is Ruth Tetlow and I'm the convener of Footsteps, have been since it started 3 years ago in 2015. As you probably know, this is the final event of Interfaith Week in Birmingham. I know.
Excuse me, can you speak a bit louder?
Okay, this is the final event of Interfaith Week in Birmingham, although I know we're technically in Smethwick now, but it's part of the Birmingham area. And there's been a large programme of events throughout the week, so this is a fitting finale. We are, as you know, Footsteps, Faiths for a Low Carbon Future, and we set up as a small informal group. We've got no paid staff, no office or anything really, apart from the Peace Hub where Pete Doubtfire works, who's there and who's prepared most of our visual aids this afternoon. We set up at that time because we felt that faiths had a particular role in working together to combat climate change, following the conference in Paris, which alerted the world to the seriousness of that threat. So we've been working together, all the faiths in the city, since then, and are going from strength to strength. The recent report from the International Panel on Climate Change has highlighted again for us how urgent the need is for everybody to take seriously the threat of climate change and to build adjustments into their own personal lives. And that's what we're really going to be looking at this afternoon, with a focus on something that's very much an everyday matter for all of us, food, but which we can also make use of on our efforts to sustain the planet. So without further introduction, we're going to have 3 sections this afternoon. At the end of each section of speakers or video, there's going to be a chance for discussion around the tables. That's why you've been asked to sit at different tables, so that you can share your reactions, your opinions, your feedback to the topics that you've heard raised in the presentations. So I hope that's clear. There will be, at the end of the programme, the opportunity to take part in the Sikh langar, the food which they always serve in Gurdwaras, if you wish to do so. So we're going to start with a video from the Quakers. Those of us who are only familiar with Quakers in this country perhaps need to understand that this comes from Quakers in various different parts of the world, and Chris has explained to me that there are many different types of Quakers in different parts of the world, so they might appear quite different from the Society of Friends that we know here in this country, but they're all part of the wider Quaker family, and they're doing some very interesting things about climate change in different parts of the world. So we'll start with this.
I'm Ludwig. I'm from the whole worship group in central Philippines. I live on an island, a small island, right in the heart of the country, the archipelago.
My name is Guido da Simba. I'm 25 years old and I come from a small village in the western part of Kenya called Mukuyu.
My name is Crisanto de la Cruz and I'm from the Philippines. I serve as the National Director of Philippine Evangelical Friends International Ministries.
I think it's a change in weather patterns because there were like seasons you could know I plant in April and it will rain immediately after that so that the plants are able to germinate. But now it's very uncertain. You are never sure the rains will come when you expect them to come. So it makes you think about when do you plant, and you're not guaranteed that it will rain when the plants need it. In the western part of Kenya, largely rely on agriculture. So most people are farmers, and my parents included. They've been relying on farm produce to feed the family and take us to school. And while I was still in school, it was easy to get enough produce so that it could pay for my school fees and my other siblings. But now we have one sibling in school, and it's really hard to get enough produce from the farm just to afford to pay her school fees when it's just one person. So I think it's quite significant at this time, and yeah, we feel it. Everyone feels it. Probably a bigger problem is for thinking about other families which are still heavily reliant on agriculture.
My mother's side of the family is a family of rice farmers. And when I was little, when I would visit, I would hear talk of, oh, it's planting season, it's harvest season. They would know exactly, well, in a manner of speaking, when to do things. Now, things have just become heavily uncertain, and it's a burden for farmers. And it's really sad. It's really sad. Food security has been heavily threatened, and it affects the most marginalized members of the community.
In the Philippines, we only have two major seasons, and that's the summer season and the rainy season. And part of the impact of the climate change in our country is that we are having extremely hot summer seasons nowadays, and oftentimes it is prolonged. And during the rainy season, we do get an enormously high volume of water, which causes flooding in most of our cities. Evidently, it is increasing. The floodings in Metro Manila, for example, is happening more frequently than it used to. We all know that the Philippines is a relatively poor country, and these kinds of natural disasters are only adding to the suffering of the Filipino people.
The existence of the testimonies as guidelines to us is something that really inspires me, and I draw from that, and then I focus on it, sit down on it at meaningful worship, and wait for the inward leading on how to move forward, and it always works.
Well, coming from the evangelical friends background, we value so much the scripture, And it is through the scripture that we actually find inspiration. In the book of Genesis, we can see there that when God created the earth, He made humanity, and He entrusted to us the care and the nurture of His creation. Not that we are superior in any way, but that we are given this particular role of nurturing what He has made.
I think for me, responding to this issue is a matter of helping others in the society, because the people who are affected by this climate change are our friends, the people we live with in our society. So it's an issue that affects us personally to an extent, and as Christians, being able to take care of those around us, I mean, they're our concern. For me, when I think that our family, we are now old enough to help pay my sister's school fees, I think for my neighbors who might not have stabilized by this time, it's something that we should, I think, as a Christian, worry about, that how will they survive.
For us, evangelical friends, the pleasure of God is what motivates us the most. And knowing as well that when we care about the creation, we prevent people from suffering. And not only people, but the entire creation as well. And so that gives us so much joy, knowing that we are fulfilling the will of God by doing responsible care towards God's creation.
When I come across like-minded people, like-hearted people, I'd say, and we can do things together, we can create initiatives together, it really makes me happy.
I say this not only for friends around the world, but both for Christians and for the world's population in general. We need to be more conscious with our consumption, because indeed there is so much excesses in our lifestyle, and if only we will cut those excesses, it will help a lot in mitigating the causes of destruction for our environment.
I hope we can find a way through corporate discernment in our meetings, in our Quaker churches, to make a conscious effort to live in true Quaker simplicity. Not in the conventional definition, but in our definition, which is brought about by the answers that we get from the still small voice within that we listen to. Yeah, whatever you take from that, live it, stick to it, and let your life speak to other people.
That was a wonderful way to start. It's put us all immediately into a much wider global context, hasn't it? And some very touching and memorable words there from those three Quakers in different parts of the world. Now we're going to turn to Jyoti Singh, who is our treasurer of Footsteps, and he's recently been involved with his friend Colin, who's here also, in setting up the business that's marketing these recyclable plates that you've seen. And he's going to tell you a bit more about EcoSeek, which is the organisation that is producing it.
Thank you. Thank you, Paige. Right, just to start with quickly, as Ruth mentioned, I'm Rob Johnson. I've actually got two hats, or two turbans if you want to call it. Basically, I'm part of a charity called EcoSeek, who are an environmental charity kind of around the world. In fact, most of the teams in America right now, just creating awareness. They were here back in January, February, March, creating awareness around the temples and the gurdwaras in the UK. My other turban, as we've mentioned, is Eco-Friends, which these products are from, which I believe Khalid will be speaking about later on in conjunction with myself. So to begin with, actually, the video we've just seen, it's quite incredible. I find that in different parts of the world, food is changing, climate is changing, and it's up to us to kind of make sure that we start doing something about it now. Personally, I believe we've left it too late already in regards with plastics. I think the impact that plastics are having on the world is astonishing at the moment. So the more we can do, the better it's going to be. So being Sikh is being kind to nature. So bringing in Sikhism here, that is what it's all about. We are taught from the beginning to live with nature rather than living against it. So there's a word like humility and compassionate. That's kind of instilled into Sikhism from the beginning. Now, what we need nature. If you look at it, nature doesn't necessarily need us, but we need nature to survive. If we kill off nature today, our future generations are going to see the full impact of it. Where do EcoSeek get their inspiration from? Now, our Guru Harai inspired Sikhs to plant trees and live in harmony with nature. In fact, in remembrance of his coronation, we actually hold a Sikh Environment Day on the 14th of March every year. There would usually be an event in most of the gurdwaras which we're trying to talk to and get on side at the moment. Now, celebrating Sikh Environment Day is most important to us, to kind of commemorate our Guru, who built gardens, he built forests. Forests in regards that he planted fruit trees in the area of Punjab. So not only that fenced off, but for the poor to come and eat from them, which is, I think, what we need to try and inspire too. Going forward, right. Our vision, Guru Nanak Dev Ji, our first Guru, and to be fair, today it's a bit of a coincidence actually. It's Guru Nanak Dev Ji's birthday, so there will be a big celebration going on downstairs. And when we do finish up here, please go and kind of enjoy yourself downstairs and have a look around. Guru Nanak Dev Ji, as I say, is the first embodiment of divine light in the Sikh tradition, laid the foundation for a sacred vision for the environment when he composed this verse. It's quite touching. It's Pavan Guru Pani Pita Mata Tarat Mahat. Basically meaning air is the Guru, water the Father, and the earth is the Great Mother. So we honor our Guru's wisdom by believing that all humans have an intrinsic sensitivity to the natural world, and that a sustainable, more just society is possible, where water, air, land, forest, and biodiversity remain vibrant, living systems for our generation and future generations. I think that future generations is what we need to concentrate on. We're probably not going to be around in the next 50, 60 years, but it's our kids, our grandchildren that are going to see the impact of what we've done today or what we haven't done today. I'll let you have a look at that photo and just let it sink in a little bit. I think it kind of puts a lot of it into perspective, really. I'll put a question mark in front of food problem. We think there is a shortage of food. There's a problem. I believe otherwise, and this picture represents it. We are throwing away food which could be given to someone who needs it. In fact, I think the problem isn't with the food, it's with management of food. I think it's bad management of waste, meaning that certain people in certain areas of the world don't have access to that food that is being thrown away. So we take food and water for granted in these countries, developed countries. I think we don't think twice before chucking that half a plate into the bin, or all that bread into the bin, or just, okay, I need that bit of water. But if you put ourselves in that kid's position, I think it kind of just brings reality into our minds. And as I said, I don't think food shortage is a problem, it's the way we manage it. That's a stat I found online, it's actually quite astonishing. If you were to put all food waste together, it'll be the third biggest country in regards to the greenhouse gas emissions. That is absolutely incredible. Imagine the amount of food we're wasting. If you were to cut that in half, I think we'll do a lot of good to our environment. The other thing I'd like to kind of mention here is one of the other things what we don't notice is consuming meat. Since mankind's been around, we have consumed meat, but in very, very small amounts. Whereas it used to be we had meat with vegetables once in a week, twice a week. Now it's become the other way around. Oh, you can? Yeah, sure. I think it's now turned it around, and what's happening now is we're having meat with some vegetables, and I think that needs to change. In Sikhism, obviously, meat is forbidden. However, I think in the world, meat consumption needs to go down. We are chopping down trees, we're clearing spaces to grow food, crops or feed the animals which we're going to kill off in the end. I think rather than doing that, why don't we grow food for ourselves? This, once again, food facts, 88 million tons of food is wasted in EU countries each year. That's a big number. And this is actually enough to feed 55 million people living in poverty around Europe. 9 times over. Okay, I mean, just let that sink in for a second. And the amount of food that we're wasting, we've got people who are out there on the streets today. In UK, let's forget about the third world countries for a minute. In the UK, there are people out there suffering who have no food, yet we are wasting 88 million tons of food. Okay, and UK wastes 15 million tons of that. Now, just think about that for a second and think, what are we doing? What are we doing every time we put something in a bin? 53 of that waste comes from our own households. So we need to start at home. We can't look at someone else. And, I know there's a lot of restaurants out there. There's a lot of other supermarkets, for example, that waste a lot of food. But if you start at home, we can start making a change. Now, not only food is wasted, but water is also wasted alongside. So once you've chucked that food away, you'll think, we just wasted that bit of food. But you're wasting all the effort, all the time that's gone into growing that food. So just as a comparison, you've got 100 buckets of water to produce a loaf of bread. So every time you chuck it away, that's what's happening. Okay? And 6 buckets of water to produce a potato. 15 million per year to dispose of that food waste. I mean, how inconvenient do you want to get, basically, with that? Now, connecting Sikhi to food, one of the really most kind of famous stories that come to mind is Guru Nanak. Guru Nanak was given 20 rupees when he was 14 years old and was asked to go and do some business, go and make a profit. He went out there on his travels to the city. He found some priests, sadhus out there who were hungry. What he did, he bought food and he fed them. His father very angrily said, I asked you to make a profit, not waste it on charity. Guru Nanak's reply was, this is true business, by feeding the hungry holy men. The blessings I get from them, that is my profit. And that's the kind of concept Sikhism works on. Caring for the earth, Mata Tarat. Now, a lot of the food we're eating today, we're growing, we're trying to cut corners. We're putting pesticides, genetically modified food. We are cutting corners, and what's that doing is it's causing diseases. Cancer, for example, is one of the ones that's I believe directly linked to food. So what can we do? Grow, buy, and eat organic. Majority of us have got gardens. If not, we can have land somewhere where we can grow food organically. We can develop open places into parks or mini forests, grow flowers organically, invite birds, butterflies, bees, and promote biodiversity. And this is what Guru Nanak's teaching teaches us Sikhs and the world, to be fair. Guru Nanak Dev Ji taught us Uttam Kheti, which is natural farming. And that's what Punjab in India is all about. So how can you help live our Guru's vision, protecting the environment? So there's a verse there, it says, Apan hatthe ape hi aap kaj sawariye. So let's resolve our own issues. We're the problem, we have to become the solution. So think before you buy food. Prepare yourself before you go to shopping. Have a shopping list. Only buy what is necessary. Only take or only cook what you can eat. Make your celebrations good. This is one of the things we're trying to target a lot of the gurdwaras and temples. But I believe across other communities, this would be effective as well. Clean and green Nagar Kirtan, the procession that we're having today, one of the targets is we're going to be targeting the processions to make it green, plastic free. And please do join us in regards to celebrating Sikh Environment Day on 14th of March next year. And I will try and keep that there. Finish off, be sensitive to all living beings and honor the divine in all creation. Being Sikhs means being kind to environment. True remembrance lies in reflecting on the teachings of the Guru. If there's any questions, guys, I'll be here afterwards. Thank you very much. Thank you.
You can see that we've got a packed programme this afternoon, so we're going to hear lots of people speaking for a relatively short period of time, and then to allow enough time for the discussion between all of us at the end of each section. In this section we've got two more speakers. Have we got George Ballantyne here? I'm afraid I don't know him yet. So George, would you like to come? George is from the Baha'i faith, and he's come from Leicester, is that right?
That's true.
Yep. So we're very pleased to welcome you, George, to give us a bit of an insight into the Baha'i perspective on these matters.
Thank you very much.
8 minutes.
7 minutes 45 now. Okay, thanks for inviting me. I'm really glad to be here, and it's a lovely day to be here with the Guru Nanak Gurpurab outside. I was wondering where I was going to get lunch on the way here, and I had to start pushing food away from me, which is always a great thing that I found from my Sikh friends. I attended the last event at the Progressive Synagogue here a year ago. I just came along as a punter. I wasn't one of the presenters or speakers, so I'm really glad to be able to see it from the other side of the tables this time. What I've got here is, when you're a religious person or a person of spirituality or interested in faith and belief, sooner or later you're asked, what evidence is there for the existence of God? I'm not terribly sure what the evidence is for the existence of God, but I do believe that PowerPoint is evidence of the existence of the devil. Because, thanks very much. I made that joke a couple of days ago at an Interfaith Week event for the councillors at Oadby and Wigston Borough Council. Twice as many people in the room and not one person laughed. I thought, okay, immediately they think, oh, Baha'is believe that the devil lives in computers. So I'm glad that you laughed at that. What I've got here is the most basic kind of presentation. No video, no colour, no pictures, just some texts, because I'm not too sure how many of you will know anything about the Baha'i faith and its position vis-a-vis food, the environment, sustainable development. So I've really just taken, there's quite a lot of publications on this subject. And like many faith-based community initiatives, the Baha'is enjoy that status of non-governmental organisation, consulting with the United Nations in all its different forms, UNICEF, UNESCO, consulting with the European Parliament, the Council of Europe. And I've got a few texts which I should definitely be able to fit in 8 minutes if I stop yapping and get on with it, which I think should introduce a few principles about the Baha'i position. There are thousands of Baha'i development projects around the world. In fact, just a week ago on Friday, we've always had this agency for social and economic development operating in the Baha'i international community. And it was given a new kind of source of funding, new staff, a new role, a new title just 10 days ago, to emphasize that Baha'is there's nothing that we take more centrally and more strongly than putting your beliefs into action. Now, I'm sure that I'm preaching to the choir here and saying that there's no point in having principles, beliefs, axioms if you don't do something about them, and that's what I think we would all believe, really. If we're in this room, surely we believe that. Now, the first of these texts, I'm not going to just read out the text for you, there's a few things I do want to emphasise. Now, this thing, we cannot segregate the human heart from the environment outside us and say that once one of these is reformed, everything will be improved. It's not the situation that we must focus on ourselves internally, and then when we change our worldviews, change our personal behaviour, then we have to do something about the world outside ourselves. One of the most famous quotations in the Baha'i writings is a statement that says, "Let your vision be world-embracing rather than confined to your own self." And that's the essence of how Baha'is approach the path that we're on, if you like, whether it's about our own spiritual development or how we can impact on the world around us. So we cannot say, fix the environment, we'll be better, fix us, the environment will get better. It is a yin and yang situation. It's mutually beneficial to do these two things together. Please take note that this is from 1933. I'm not going to excuse sexist language from 1933. There are other parts where you'll see the his or her being used a wee bit later. Man is organic with the world. His inner life moulds the environment and is itself also deeply affected by it. The one acts upon the other, and every abiding change in the life of man is the result of these mutual reactions. Sometimes we forget that not everybody can read the slides. Some folk, English is not the first language. Some people aren't good at reading at a distance. So this is the essence for Baha'is then, about a relationship to the environment. They are mutually reactive. Baha'u'llah is the founder of the Baha'i faith. It's his name that gives the word Baha'i, comes from the first part of his name. Lived from 1817 to 92, and a lot of his teachings are about this mutual relationship between the human spirit and the environment around us. So, every man of discernment, while walking upon the earth, feeleth indeed abashed, inasmuch as he is fully aware that the thing which is the source of his prosperity, his wealth, his might, his exaltation, his advancement and power is, as ordained by God, the very earth which is trodden beneath the feet of all men. There can be no doubt that whoever is cognizant of this truth is cleansed and sanctified from all pride, arrogance, and vain glory. Those attributes, pride, arrogance, vain glory, I'm not going to put up a picture of anybody you might think springs to mind with that. I think that the current political discourse, such as it is filled with people who are consumed by pride, arrogance, and vain glory. And the humility that is required for spiritual progress and social progress is born in that realization for Baha'is, that everything that we take pride in, that we take pleasure from, is bestowed upon us by the earth. So the Baha'i International Community is the name which the Baha'is use for whichever agency is interrelating with different governmental pieces of business. 2 minutes. Right. We've contributed position statements to some major environmental conferences, particularly ones that are on the topic of faiths and their engagement with the world around us, the physical world, material world. We don't believe that the question of sustainable food can be solved without the question of sustainable housing, fresh water, access to jobs, education, training. The kind of sustainability is all embracing. It's a universal kind of thing. Just in the same way that we cannot isolate inner spiritual progress from outer well-being, Baha'is don't believe that we can isolate food issues from those other ones of housing, fresh water, power, communications for that matter. Here is a quotation which we're going to have handouts, I think, with some of the slides. Was that going to be done?
Yes, they'll all be available on the website.
Okay, that's super then. This one in particular is the major one about food production. For Baha'is, agriculture and food production is the essential human science. Everything depends on it. We can send, super telescopes into space. We can chart what's going on at the bottom of the ocean. We can recreate a hologram of Beethoven and get him to conduct new pieces of music. If we don't have food, what will we do? What can we possibly do in the world without food production? Food being in the right place for the right people at the right time. So agriculture to Baha'is is the essential human science. It is more valued than anything else when matters of the economy, production, distribution are being discussed. The position of the farmer, and I think it does say either in this one or the next one, his or her. So it's taken regard of the fact that women throughout the world are the biggest producers of food and they're the ones who suffer most in the lack of food. That is the absolute core of human civilization and society, that we must give proper regard to food and nutrition. So it sits at the middle, as it were, of a hub of other sustainable needs, which I think we all know about. And that might even be the last. Yeah, I got through them all. Thanks for your kind attention. I think I'm going to be back up here a wee bit later in the programme, but obviously, if you want to ask me anything about that, because that was a bit of a whistle-stop tour, to put it mildly, then come and talk to me at any time. Okay,
Thank you very much, George. I'm now going to call on Lizzie Nelson, who's come all the way from Kent, would you believe it, to be with us today. She's involved with an organisation rather similar to Footsteps in London, but she's actually going to introduce us to sort of global perspective, is that right, on caring for the environment?
Absolutely. So first of all, thank you very much for inviting me. I'm absolutely delighted to be here. I've heard about the work of Footsteps for a few years, and I think what's happening here in Birmingham is just so inspirational for the rest of the country. So thank you for what you're doing and the leadership that's happening here. Kamran Fazil, who I think some of you know, is a member of our steering group. So that's how I've heard about everything that's happening here. I know I can't be here today. I'll just say a couple of words about the Faith for the Climate Network, which is my employer. So I work for them very part-time. It's a network of 100 faith-based organisations and individuals, not just in London but across the country. So our members are, for example, Christian Aid, Islamic Relief, World Jewish Relief, Islamic Relief, some of the kind of big faith organisations, the Church of England, the network of Buddhist organisations, the MCB, and so on. And then individual faith leaders, rabbis, imams, bishops, and so on, and then individual activists as well. Our membership is free, and if anybody would like to join, you're very, very welcome. We're really here just to link people up across the country with one another and internationally, which is what I've been asked to speak about today. So my role is part funded by an American organisation called Green Faith, who you may have heard of, which brings together all the faiths in America in particular, but they're also looking internationally with a care for environmental issues. And their key campaign is, at the moment, is this one, Living the Change. And it starts from the recognition that we've already heard about today from George, that in any faith, it's not just about what we think and what we believe, it's about putting that into practice, it's about how we live. And Living the Change is about sustainable living and making a commitment in your own faith tradition to sustainable living. Back in October, when they had their big week of Living the Change, there were 80 events around the world in 23 countries. And this event is also badged as a Living the Change event because of what you're doing here today. So I don't know if this is the 81st event or the 100th event now, but please be encouraged that you're part of something that's happening all around the world. I think sometimes, you can think, what difference does it make if I change my lifestyle? How's that going to make a difference? But we've already heard about the impact of food waste and just quite what a massive issue that is, both here in the UK and globally. I think there are they're the reason that we want to live our faiths, because that's what it is to be a person of faith. But just to encourage you that change can happen and our individual changes make a difference. I don't know if you've heard recently how quickly veganism is growing in this country. There's been a 700% increase in the last 2 years. And I also heard from Fletcher Harper last week, who's the director of Green Faith. He gave the example in the UK during the World War. When we started the war in 1939, Britain imported 70% of our food. By 1945, 70% of the food that was eaten in this country was homegrown. And obviously that's gone backwards now, but it just shows how quickly change can happen if we all do it, if we all make a change. You know, that was just in 6 years that turned around. So one of the things that we're going to be invited to do today, you'll hear from all the speakers about the wonderful range of things that are happening here in Birmingham and across Faith. But we're going to be invited as part of Living a Change to make our own individual pledges. And that could be, you know, many of you will already be living the change in many, many ways. But so it could be something for you personally, or it could be something that you want to take back to your own community. And we'll have a chance at the end of the day to think about what that pledge could be. And we're invited then to make our pledge online at livingthechange.net to be part of this global movement that I was talking about and have our voices heard on that kind of platform. So thank you again for inviting me. Thank you for being part of Living the Change. And I'm really looking forward to hearing everything else that's going to happen.
Thank you, that was great. A lot of interesting information packed into a very short space of time, Lizzie, that's great. Now we're going to have our little discussions around each table. You'll find on the table that there are some guidelines for a leader of the discussion. We hope that we'd have somebody from our Footsteps planning group on each table, which I think may not have happened. If you are from the Footsteps planning group, then perhaps you would take it as your responsibility to facilitate the discussion in the way that the guidelines suggest. If there isn't anybody from the Footsteps planning group on your table, somebody else could perhaps take on that role. We want you obviously to reflect on the speakers that you just heard and to share your own experience from your own faith background. But first of all, you'll need to introduce yourselves to each other because probably you don't know the other people on your table. So please start by personal introductions, just briefly, and then go on to talk about what you've been hearing and your reactions to those challenges. You've got about 50